Welcome everyone. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I made the roof and completed the general store. I forgot to record while I made the roof supports, and I think I'll be able to show you later in the video. Here I was trying to figure out the switch for the lights. To me, this is the hardest part of the lights. So I was hoping to make that little opening so that I could put the lights on the other side glued down, so that when you press, it doesn't like push, your finger won't push all the way through. Originally, I had drilled 2 holes on each side of that little switch, but I only ran the one through there. And then I wanted to stabilize it even more, so I took some skinny strips of masking tape that I cut, and I wrapped them around there, because that little the little foam board block that the switch is attached to, I plan to glue it on the inside of my roof. I made the 2 holes because I was hoping at the other side of the switch I could run the wire through there, but it's attached to the battery pack, so I can't run it through there to stabilize that side, so I put extra tape on this end. I wanted to make sure that I had all of this figured out, because my roof support that I cut the little hole out for the switch that will be facing the outside, I needed to finish it with some planks, so I wanted to make sure that everything would work with the switch before I glued all that on and finished it. The way that I made my roof support that I forgot to record, which is in that piece in my hand right there, I took a measurement of the width of the general store and the height of the ceiling, how high I wanted the ceiling to be. And then I marked the center, and then from the center down to each corner, I cut away, and that gave me my roof pitch. I made 3 in total, and this one I'm tracing onto poster board so that I can cut out all of my planks and glue them on, since that will be showing from the outside. That's the end, and it will be showing from the outside of the general store. I purposely tried to be sloppy when I was cutting out my planks and not making them perfect, and I didn't want to glue them all together either. And then all of it that was hanging over, I just trimmed it off and trimmed away the little hole for my switch. Since it will be facing the outside, I'm scratching some of that weathered wood into it. Next, I gave it a coat of Mod Podge, and I covered the opposite side too as well. That way it helps to cut down on it warping. And this piece with the masking tape is the center roof support, which is going to go on the inside of the roof. And I'm painting it black so that if you see through the windows, you won't see that bright white of the foam board. This is the piece that I created to go on the roof support outside. So I'm painting it the ivory to match the general store, and I'm aging it some so that it'll all match. For the 2 windows upstairs in the attic of the general store, I put some 2-way stick tape so that I could just press some lace up to it. I'm not going to stiffen the lace or gather it. I'm just putting it there so it looks like maybe the curtains are closed or drawn, just so you can't see directly into those windows. I didn't want it to just be flat, so I was kind of trying to pinch it together. And then the bottom, I think I just pulled it tight, and I've stuck it down, pressed it really good. But by the time I was finished with the second window, I was starting to worry that maybe that 2-way stick tape won't hold it over time. So I'll show you how I fix that here in a moment. And I don't know why, but I created another piece off camera without recording it, that I forgot to record. And this is the piece so that when the roof is on, that side of the top front of the general store will look finished. But I did it basically the same way. I glued down some planks and painted it the same colors and aged it to match the outside of the general store. And here I took one of my roof supports and I cut it to bypass the windows, and I didn't need it. I didn't want it to cover the windows, so I cut each piece out and glued them on, just so it gave me a little bit of a lip somewhere for the roof to sit. I think if I tried to just glue that piece there whole across the windows with the lace there, I don't think it would have laid flat enough to give me that nice lip for my roof when I go to glue it on. And here you can see how I fixed this problem with what I was worrying about, maybe that lifting over time. I just put some glue over the top of it. And here's how the wires for the back room look taped down. And before I could glue that back roof support on, I laid that wire very tightly down on, or I taped it down tightly to that foam board and had it in there before I glued the roof section on, and I just glued it right over that wire, as you can see right here. And the wire is pretty thin, so it didn't give me a problem gluing that roof section on. And here's where I realized that I'm like a ½ inch short on that one wire, so I will have to order some and complete this part later, but the lights do work. I cut my roof sections, and on the end that will be the peak, I beveled it on that end so that it will butt up nicely to the other piece. I plan for this side to be glued down, but the other side will be like hinged, and you can lift it up so you can change the batteries out of the lights. And here I'm going to show you how the two pieces look. They're both beveled on the end so that they meet up nicely without leaving a gap on the top. When I cut these roof sections, I only left like a ½ inch hanging over on this back end, and on the sides I didn't have any hanging over. To create the hinge, I used Tyvek, so I bought a pack of envelopes from the office store because they're kind of expensive, but they last forever. And they're great because they don't tear, so they work really well for making hinges. I already have one side of my roof glued on, and this hinge I'm going to glue to the piece that's going to lift up and down. Just make sure when you go to glue it down to the other piece that it's not crooked. You don't want it to be crooked. I'm hoping to finish off this side of the roof using magnets to hold it down, because if I don't, it will kind of flare up on that one end. So I may use magnets on the roof piece and maybe magnets on the supports to hold it down firmly. But I need to wait until the extra wire from Evan Designs comes in, because I don't know where I can and can't put the magnets because of the little switch. So the hinge works really well, except I noticed on the bottom edge it flares up just a little bit right here. That's why the magnets will really help to hold that down. I'm starting on the back room roof, and I want it to be a tin roof, so I took my little scoring tool and I scored several pieces, enough cardstock to cover that roof, even with it overlapping. And here I'm just trimming some of it down so that it will look like random sizes and shapes. And I gave it a base coat of Mod Podge and a base coat of black. Here I'm painting different grays. I add a little bit of black to it to make some darker and keep some lighter. And I'm dry brushing very lightly with some metallic silver. I took some chalk pastels and some Tim Holtz Distress Ink, the walnut stain, to age some of the pieces, some more than others. I laid all of the pieces out on top of the roof to see how I wanted them to lay before I glued them down. I'm using some of my really heavy cardstock that's good for scratching the wood grain into it. I'm trying to decide which way I wanted to go because I wanted the wood grain to be up and down for the shingles. And I thought I had it figured out, but when I went to go cut them, I noticed that some of them went the wrong way, so I tried to change it up. I used both. They actually worked okay, but this is the way I prefer first, with them going up and down. And then I just cut little slits into it, not all the way through. And then I just started cutting little jagged triangle shapes in the areas where I made the slit to look like the individual pieces of shingles. And here I'm taking my shingle strips and I'm gluing them onto the roof, overlapping a little bit with the previous row, and also making sure to stagger them so it doesn't look like shingles just directly right above a shingle. At the very end, I also dry brushed some light gray over the top of all of the shingles. I realized I forgot to show how I ended the strips at the top of my roof, I took a 1/2 inch strip or close to that of cardstock and I folded it in half. And then I place it up on the roof and decide how long I need it to be. And then I painted it with Mod Podge and painted it the same color as the roof. And when I go to glue it down, I don't glue it. I glued it completely on the other side, but on this side of the roof, I didn't glue it down all the way. And I did that because I was hoping that maybe it wouldn't make it too tight when I try to lift the roof up and down. It still seems to be opening and closing okay and not too tight. I hope to add some magnets in 3 places on my roof piece. I should have done it before I glued it on, but it is what it is. And then I'll glue the other magnets to the roof sections, or somehow glue them in that area to hold the roof down. And here I'm showing you, I'm not really painting, but here I'm showing you the direction I dry brushed my shingles at the end. I just used a light gray. I never knew when I started my general store that I was going to be sharing it with everyone, because I started my YouTube channel right after I started the construction of the general store. That's why that part of it is missing. But I have enjoyed sharing this with you along the way. And thank you for helping keeping me motivated, because I have a feeling I would have really dragged my feet if I did not have my YouTube channel. I've so enjoyed talking with you in the comment section and just looking back on some of our memories and memories that you've told me that my general store has jogged for you. Those are very special to me. It's very sad, the general store coming to an end, but there's a few things that I still would like to add to it here and there. And I may just do an update video sometime on it, especially so that you can see how I finished the magnets and the lighting situation that I had up in the attic. One of my viewers mentioned that I needed to have a Western hat hanging up somewhere, or several of them. And it's true, I need that, but I don't know how to make a Western hat yet. So that's something that I will definitely need to add. And on the front porch, I hope to make a rocking chair, and I'm going to put it in that empty spot over to the left for it. I would also, on this end where the little back porch is, I would have loved to have added a tree. And I still plan to add a tree, but I need to get better at tree making first. And there needs to be a pipe to vent that potbelly stove. So that's why my little switch, since it's not in yet back here, I'm going to leave that spot open, and that might be where the pipe has to come out. Or else, if the switch does go there, I'll have the pipe come out somewhere else. My next structure is going to be an Old West hotel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.